The 10-minute drill.
This is a big one.
Covered by Universal Roof and Contracting. The difference is universal.
On 1010XL.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Hit it.
All right, some sports concepts and rationalizations coming your way. We call it the 10-minute drill. At the end of the drill, Beef, do we have a prize pack for the Googans?
Yeah, we do, Dan. Stay tuned to the end of the 10-minute drill. One lucky Googan's going to get a chance to take home a prize pack featuring dinner for two. Let's eat at Sonny's Barbecue.
Overnight, the president stoked the flames when he said, could it be even remotely possible that in Roger Goodell's rather interesting statement of peace and reconciliation, and by the way, good for Roger Goodell, and I know some people will, listen, one thing we're doing in this day and age is we tend to criticize everything that is said when people are trying to be understanding, and that part I've always, for me, I'm about forgiveness. I'm about and I tell people all the time, you should try it. It's not easy, but it feels good, and when you can forgive someone, like Drew Brees, everybody attacked Drew Brees. Not everybody. People attacked Drew Brees after the apology. And I thought it was a very heartfelt apology. And it's gone on and on, by the way. He went to video and apologized. Now his wife has apologized. So to me, it just he's just trying to save himself. Okay, well, if that's your opinion, that's fine. But nonetheless.
Well, he is in a locker room with a lot of players he rubbed the wrong way.
And Roger Goodell needed to say something. The players put together that video where they wanted three things by the NFL, and Roger Goodell addressed all three. So I thought it was powerful and well done. Anyway, so Roger Goodell said something. So then the president says, could it even be remotely possible that in Roger Goodell's rather interesting statement of peace and reconciliation, he was intimating that it would now be okay for the players to kneel or not to stand for the national anthem, thereby disrespecting our country and our flag. That's called stoking the fires, actually, quite honestly. Nonetheless, so that will become a topic, and people will discuss it. But I will say this, and what I think is going to happen anyway is, and players will find other ways to protest if this happens, but I just have this feeling that because of the coronavirus, that all the pregame stuff is going to be a thing of the past anyway, at least this year.
As far as them lined up on the sideline.
I mean, just everything. I mean, I'm talking about coming out of the tunnel, getting introduced with all the people on the field. There's going to be so many fewer people on football fields during games and pregame. A lot of the in-game stuff is going to be taken away, especially if there's no fans. There's no need for it. And if there's 10,000 fans, they'll probably say, we hope you understand we can't do that this year.
I still believe that by the time it'll be at minimum half capacity. I don't know. Why can't you let – I mean,
Maybe.
It's your choice if you're wary of going. But it's pretty clear in this country
it's
right
your
now.
choice, but it's also a question of putting others at risk.
Well,
so,
now, hold on now.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans are close quarters right now, every day.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean,
No
at
question.
some point, if you have a prerogative to be in close quarters for one situation, you have a prerogative to be in close quarters for another, as long as it's not something, completely irresponsible. So, point being, I think they'll probably make it a concerted effort to have more fans than that. I was thinking about this for, as we move past problems and into solutions, or try to, or at least some common ground to meet on. I don't know people personally that are opposed to peaceful protest.
Right.
Now, there's nothing wrong with peace in any form or fashion.
Right.
So a peaceful protest is applicable in these times. Why not a meeting in the middle when it comes, rather than making is, again, about something that it's not about? I mean, do we really still at this stage really feel that those that feel so violated right now, their issue is really with the national anthem? It's not. It's just that time that they're choosing to make their protest. So I would suggest this. How about before every game, the players go out, they form a circle, and they all kneel. We have a 30-second moment of silence as a protest, and then we stand and play the national anthem. And let's keep these two things separate. They're not the same thing. I don't know if that's just as easy.
Yeah, it's
You're allowed
it's a tough deal. I mean, I understand. Like
your
I said,
window.
I understand people who, and this is going to become a discussed topic, but I understand people who want to stand for the anthem. And right now, in this, in our country, after what we've seen and listening and learning, I certainly understand a little bit more. I think, again, not being an African American, but I do think I understand more where the African Americans are coming from. The bottom line is this, and this is the one thing I've said throughout, and I will continue to maintain this. I talked to many African Americans, friends, and people that I know, and if you could ask any person this question, have you been, are you a victim of racism? And they can give you 5 or 10 incidents throughout their life. That's wrong. And that's something that we need as a country to address. And we need to address it.
It's hard to legislate ignorance
and
meanness.
It is hard.
I mean, something you can't.
But
it's really.
But we need to try something else. We need to, and again, people far smarter than us, even though you were a valedictorian of your high school.
Thank you.
People far smarter than us need to sit at a table and be able to put all the chips in and talk openly and honestly and have a back and forth and come up with some different solutions.
I think it would be.
That's what I think.
Also think we would get more solutions in the long term if we handle these things like point by point of what's going on. In other words, this started rightfully so, and we talked about this before any mass revolts occurred. Mm-hmm. But what that happened to that poor man in Minnesota is despicable.
Well, and listen, here's the interesting thing. Everybody 100%
agree with that.
Agree with that.
Right.
And yet we have a division.
Correct.
Right. But I haven't talked to anyone who won't say that was not murder. It was murder.
Well, but my point being, while we all agree on that,
mm-hmm.
can't we first address the subject, in this case with very great specificity, police brutality?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we can come to some sort of consensus, agree,
I don't think we're going to come to a consensus agreement on those types of things.
Well, then consensus or not, but then before we even deal with that, we're burning buildings and making it about other things. It's not. This is not just about police brutality now.
No. But I think that is a, if you will, and this may be the wrong word, a symbol for racism that is going on in our country, and I think that's where people want to say, okay, enough. And like I said, if anything, I will say this: it has, and these are uncomfortable situations. I always talk about uncomfortable avenue. These are uncomfortable situations for a lot of people to discuss, but we have been forced to have these discussions, and I think that's a great thing. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a positive thing. And we had Mal Washington on last week, and he talked about that. He said, I've had more people call and reach out to me and ask me, what can I do? How are you? And had race discussions than I've had in the last, 2 weeks, and I've had in the last, 20 years. So, I think in that respect, that's a positive as well. Leonard Fournette, by the way, is planning a peaceful protest tomorrow at 10, I believe.
All right, now that leads to my next this topic I'd like to bring up, and I found this to be more offensive than any lack of highlight on Sunday Night Football. I found it to be more egregious than any power ranking we ever get to on this program. Mm-hmm. But when the Jacksonville Jaguars become, at the time, the first pro sports team ever to hold an organized protest, and yet they get not even a breath of a mention in the national media, while the Broncos and the Falcons and every college coach who stood up was glorified?
Yeah, we don't count.
That's so... I mean, it almost makes me want to almost say a curse word.
Yeah.
That is so... It's mind-boggling to me that happened like it did, because what the Jaguars did on Friday should be a model for how to interact with your community and voice where you stand and what needs to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it couldn't have been, again, peaceful protests from sunrise to sundown every day, all day. I mean, and get attention to issues that need attention.
Mm-hmm.
And, right now with the nerves raw, there's too much bubbling. There's too much chaos right now to really effectively make. And by the way, that's not the way things work anyway. It's not, there's a problem. Boom, solution 2 days later.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see on that. But I thought it was despicable that the Jaguars and their efforts weren't even noticed.
And that shouldn't surprise you. It
does. So the Denver Broncos aren't the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Falcons aren't anything noteworthy. It's the fact that the Jags were the first ever, and it's not even mentioned, and the other ones are, heavily covered.
We lost two people that we've known through the years this weekend, and it was sad. It was both very sad. It's sad that Ken Riley died because not being a Hall of Famer, which he should. And
he
that's
never even got consideration, really.
65 career picks. I don't understand. He's fifth all time. Again, I've always said this, Prosser. You know me, guys. If you're top 10 in what you do in anything, especially in the NFL, how can you not be a Hall of Famer?
Well, especially, Dan, Ken Riley. Imagine if Ken Riley played where they actually threw the ball 50 times a game.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you could also mug the
there's
receivers
more
a little
picks
bit
now than there were then, but nonetheless.
I mean, look at the names
That's
that
what I
surround
mean.
him on
Yeah.
both sides.
I bet
and
they're
they're
all in.
Hall of Famers and legends.
Yeah.
And now these dolts at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, who I just get more and more mad at every day.
Yeah.
Every voter in that room, I start to lose trust in their ability to. And I know it's difficult, but I don't know how Ken Riley could go up for discussion and not go into the Hall.
You know what's incredible? In 1983, at the age of 36, I don't know why he retired. He had 8 picks, brought back 2 for touchdowns.
I mean, how is that guy not in the Hall of Fame? I had a conversation, so I didn't realize he was that close to his playing career. I probably did at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There was no Google then where you just looked up people's stats in about 8 seconds. And you remember that. I think you've been to this before, but they used to have there used to be a Florida Sportscasters Association.
Yeah.
And we'd have that deal in Daytona where all the college coaches would come, like on a Sunday.
Right.
And it would kind of kick off the season. And I can remember talking, at the time, I was kind of, even though, Jimmy Johnson and UM were there and Bobby Bowden and FSU and Florida and whatever cup of coffee coach they had in that period was there, I was more starstruck by Larry Little, was coaching BC, the Hall of Fame lineman for the Dolphins. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I really expected Ken Riley to be a Hall of Famer. So I had a conversation with him about the Hall. And, at that point, he didn't seem as urgent.
Okay.
It was only 89. So you said he'd only been eligible for a year.
Yeah.
So the talk was more like, hey, how's it going to be a Hall of Famer? And yet here we are, 30 years later and not a movement.
Yeah, I don't get that one. Despite his accomplishments, Riley was never an exceptionally popular or well-known player. He's in Cincinnati his whole career, 15 seasons. Never once selected to play in the AFL All-Star Game or AFC NFC Pro Bowl.
Wow.
Amazing.
How do those two things coexist?
I don't know. Well,
65 in 15 years. Now we're talking about, 4 a year.
Yeah, but so what?
I know.
Who does 65? I mean,
yeah, not many.
Frank Gore is going to he's like a Frank version of Frank Gore.
Similar.
Frank Gore going to be in the Hall of Fame for some reason? Yeah, he is.
He is.
He is. He'll be in the Hall of Fame.
I think Gore, though, is a little more standoutish than Ken
He doesn't
Riley.
have a lot of Pro Bowls, that's for sure.
That's true, too.
So
Fred
anyway,
Taylor's another one.
Yeah, but anyway, so Ken Riley passing away at the age of 72, lived here in Jacksonville for a few years as well, and then Rashay Caldwell murdered, shot to death. From what I understand,
it's been
going out
his own house
to. Did they arrest? Did they find or no?
I don't think
Any
they
suspects.
caught him yet.
Anything? No.
Anyway, they're
sad. Very sad.
Well, and it has just been it's been a downward spiral for Rashay Caldwell since he left the NFL. I said this earlier that, covering Rashay, he was just a charming, nice, always had a smile on his face kid at the University of Florida, and I didn't know him to be anything but that in the NFL. But you remember the drop he had as a Patriot?
I read about it. I don't quite...
You don't remember that?
No, it doesn't
See, I
stick in
remember
my
that. We were
head.
watching it in the office, in the
we
sports
probably
office.
were, yeah.
And his eyes got about this big after he already had those big bug eyes, right?
Yeah.
And then they got that much bigger after he made that drop.
Tampa Jefferson High School, 3-sport star. They said he was a heck of a baseball player, and that he could have played in professional baseball. Went for football, did the right thing. He was a second-round pick, but he lasted 6 years. But, boy, the name Caldwell is synonymous with Florida football. You look him up, you're going to find Bubba number 1 and Rashay in the top 10 all-time receptions. So
Andre Caldwell has the most receptions?
Oh, yeah. Remember he caught the one he broke the record on was a touchdown. He slung it into the stands.
Wow.
And nobody ever caught more footballs at Florida than Andre Bubba Caldwell.
Yeah, Bubba Caldwell doesn't get the same. It's amazing, and I'm guilty of this. I look back as Rashay is the better player.
Oh.
What was Bubba, 5?
17 was Rashay, right?
17 was Rashay.
All right.
Rashay Caldwell, though, we hear about the cautionary tales of post-football life for these players.
Yeah.
It caught Rashay Caldwell. I mean, 2014. I mean, big drug charges. had 150 ecstasy pills, was arrested, spent over a year in jail.
Something with gambling, too. I don't
Well,
remember.
that was part of that same thing, gambling. And now, recently, he was this month going to be in court on that healthcare fraud deal.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, so it was a rough ride, but like I said, I was never anything but a sweet kid when I dealt with him.
Riche 6th on the list.
Huh?
6th.
Riche.
At Florida.
No, he's 8th, but that's okay. Well,
I don't know. I was going off of
you double
college sports reference.
Yeah, you double check and make sure you're on receptions and not yards.
Yeah, I'm on receptions.
Yeah.
I got
How many's he
Caldwell,
got?
Alvarez, Jackson.
It's going to be a drill pop quiz when we
you're
come back.
unreal.
Now that you just gave 2 more away.
Oh,
Put on your
thankfully,
thinking cap.
I got to be honest.
Yeah.
100% honest.
Yeah.
I wasn't listening to a word you guys said.
Oh.
I was looking at something.
Excellent.
I heard the Caldwell. I heard you guys arguing whether
Yeah.
he's 6th or 8th, and then
Yeah.
I completely checked out. And then
In
you
honor-
said something about yards, and then I went bye-bye.
Yeah, in honor, we'll come back and we'll look
Oh,
at
no.
Guy's
Yeah.
been back from vacay an
All
hour
right,
and a
I'm
half.
gonna
He's already in the
I'm gonna-
Bahamas.
put on your thinking cap.
I'm going to take my phone to the kitchen and look up the answer, and we'll be back with more
I like
next.
it.
It's the
Caller
Monday-
number 3, by the way, Beef. Tell them what they're going to get.
Caller 3-641-1010. Going to take home dinner for 2 from our friends at Sonny's Barbecue. 641-1010. Call now.
It's the Monday Morning Quarterback, brought to you by DivorceMenOnly.com. Someone on your side, man, when you get to those just often very damaging, hard to deal with family issues, putting the rights of men first and foremost. It's DivorceMenOnly.com.